Hello, Matujima, and watching Hornbill TV. Big changes are coming to your child's classroom. Whether you are a parent in Mumbai, a student in class 9 or a principal in Kohima, this new CBSE 3 language policy is about to rewrite the rules of the game. But here is the twist. While the goal is beautiful, celebrating India's linguistic richness, the rollout has sparked fiery debates, school protests, and even a showdown at the Supreme Court. So what is actually happening? Let's break it down step by step. So what is the 3-language formula? Forget the old 2-language system. Under the new rules, every student must now study 3 languages officially called R1, R2 and R3. Here is a non-negotiable requirement. At least 2 of these 3 must be Indian languages, officially referred to as Bharatiya Bhashas. Students can choose from the 22 languages listed in the Constitution's 8th schedule, including Assamese, Bengali, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu and Urdu. The 3rd language may be another Indian language or another approved language such as English, French, German, Spanish or Arabic, provided the requirement of studying at least 2 Indian languages has already been met. Simply put, 2 Indian languages are mandatory, while the 3rd offers greater flexibility. But who does this actually affect? This is where many parents become confused. The policy is not being implemented all at once. Instead, CBSE has introduced it in phases, meaning its impact depends entirely on the student's current class. Students currently in class 10, 2026 to 2027. Students currently studying in class 10 remain unaffected. They will continue under the existing 2-language system and will not be required to study a 3rd language. Now again, students currently in class 9. Students in class 9 must now study 3 languages, with at least 2 being Indian languages. However, CBSE has introduced a major transitional relaxation. Students already studying 2 languages such as English and French may continue with both by adding 1 Indian language as their 3rd language. For this batch, the 3rd language will only be assessed internally by the school and will not form part of the CBSE board examination. Students currently in class 7 and 8, the same transitional arrangements applies. When these students move to class 9 and 10, they may retain their existing language combination where applicable, add 1 Indian language and undergo only internal school assessment for the 3rd language. Students currently in class 6 and below, this is the first group that will experience the policy in its entirety. They will study 3 languages throughout their schooling, with at least 2 being Indian languages. When they reach class 10, the 3rd language will also become part of the CBSE board examination. The board has already released R3 textbook for class 6 in all 22 scheduled Indian languages, while textbooks for higher classes are expected to be released in phases. Now, who gets exemptions? Recognizing that every student's circumstances are different, CBSE has provided exemption and accommodations for specific categories. Children with special needs, CWSN, are eligible for exemptions and accommodations under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 and applicable CBSE provisions. CBSE schools located outside India are exempt from offering an Indian language as the 3rd language. Students returning from abroad to join CBSE schools in India are also exempt from the Indian language requirement for the 3rd language. Now, students whose families relocate between states may continue with their existing language combination wherever applicable, and schools have been instructed to accommodate such cases. Now, how will schools pull this off without teachers? This is a $1 million question. Let's be real. Not every school has a Sanskrit or Tamil teacher sitting around, but CBSE has a game plan. Schools can use existing teachers who have language skills, even if they aren't specialists. They can hire retired teachers or postgraduates on contract. They can share teachers through Sahodaya school clusters, which is a group of nearby schools pooling resources. And here is the 21st century solution: virtual classrooms. 1 teacher teaching students across multiple schools online. Plus, CBSE and NCERT are providing ready-made teaching materials so schools don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, here are some frequently asked questions. First, will students have to take a board examination for the 3rd language? The answer is, students currently in classes 7, 8 and 9 will only undergo internal school assessment. Students currently in class 6 and below will take the third language as part of the Cbse board examination when they reach class 10. What happens if students already study English and French? The answer to that is, students in the transition batches may continue studying both and simply add one Indian language where required. Now, are textbooks available? Yes, NCERT has published class 6 textbooks for all 22 scheduled Indian languages, while higher classes will receive materials in phases. Now, is the policy final? The policy is currently in force. However, petitions challenging certain aspects are scheduled to be heard by the Supreme Court in mid-July 2026, and the outcome could influence future implementation. Now, let's turn to one of the most complex questions surrounding the new policy: Nagaland. While the three-language formula may appear straightforward on paper, its implementation becomes far more complicated in one of India's most linguistically diverse states. Why is Nagaland different? Imagine a classroom where students come from several different tribal communities, each with its own language and cultural identity. That is the reality in Nagaland. The state is home to numerous Naga tribes including the Ao, Angami, Sumi, Lotha, Konyak, Chang, Pom, Sangtam and many others, each with its own distinct language. Unlike many other states, Nagaland has no single indigenous language that is spoken and accepted across all communities. That raises an important question: which Indian language should schools choose? If one tribal language is selected, students from other communities may feel excluded. Finding a common language that represents everyone is far easier said than done. The languages people actually use in everyday life is English and, as we know, Nagamese, which plays the biggest role. English is the official language of Nagaland and the primary medium of instruction in most schools, while Nagamese serves as the common language used for communication across different tribes. However, Nagamese is not included in the Constitution's 8th schedule and is not recognized as a Cbse language subject. As things stand, there are no Cbse approved textbooks, curriculum or board examinations for Nagamese. The recognition challenge, another hurdle, is that most Naga tribal languages are not currently offered as Cbse Modern Indian Language (MIL) subjects. Even if schools wish to teach languages such as Ao, Angami, Sumi or Lotha, they currently lack Cbse prescribed syllabus, board examinations and, in many cases, trained teachers. As a result, schools have limited options when trying to comply with the new language requirement. Now, why has Sanskrit become the default? In many Cbse schools across Nagaland, Sanskrit has emerged as one of the few practical options available to satisfy the requirement for an Indian language. However, many educators and parents argue that this does not reflect the policy's broader objective of preserving India's linguistic diversity. They believe students would benefit more from learning and preserving their own indigenous languages, provided those languages receive official recognition and academic support. Now, what are schools in Nagaland asking for? Rather than opposing multilingual education itself, many school leaders are seeking greater flexibility in how the policy is implemented. Among the key demands raised by principals of several Cbse schools in Nagaland are a more flexible implementation framework that recognizes Nagaland's unique linguistic diversity, official Cbse curricula, textbooks and examinations for major Naga languages such as Ao, Angami, Sumi and Lotha, greater investment in teacher training, learning materials and digital resources, fair transitional arrangements for students who have already spent years studying languages such as French or German. For many educators in Nagaland, the debate is not about whether students should learn more languages. It is about ensuring that the policy reflects the state's unique linguistic reality while giving indigenous Naga languages the opportunity to thrive within the education system. So what happens next? The story is far from over. Petitions challenging aspects of the three-language policy are expected to be heard by the Supreme Court in mid-July 2026, as mentioned earlier. The court's decision could influence how the policy is implemented, particularly on issues relating to its rollout and the concerns raised by stakeholders across different states. Now, in the meantime, Cbse has already demonstrated a willingness to adapt. The transitional relaxations granted to students currently in class 7, 8 and 9 reflects an effort to make the shift smoother while addressing practical challenges raised by schools and parents. Whether additional flexibility will be extended to linguistically diverse states such as Nagaland remains to be seen. At its heart, the three-language policy is about more than just adding another subject in school. It is part of the National Education Policy 2020, which aims to encourage students to learn multiple languages and preserve India's rich linguistic heritage. Studies have shown that learning more than one language can improve memory, problem-solving skills, and communication. It can also help students better understand different cultures and create more opportunities for higher education, jobs, and life in different parts of the country. However, the success of the policy will depend on how it is implemented. States like Nagaland, with many different tribal languages, may need greater flexibility, more teachers, better learning materials, and solutions that suit their unique linguistic landscape. As the policy begins to roll out, discussions are expected to continue among schools, parents, education experts, and the courts. The way these challenges are addressed will play an important role in deciding how successfully the three-language policy is implemented across the country. That's all we have for now. Keep watching Hornbill TV.